I told my husband I wanted a divorce. He exploded, screaming, "You're tearing this family apart." His mother accused me of betrayal, yelling, "You never deserved him." My children begged me to stay, crying, "Don't leave us." Fighting back tears, I whispered, "You don't know what he did. But you will." When they learned his dark secret, their world was shattered. It was a quiet Tuesday evening in our suburban home in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The kids were upstairs, and the hum of the dishwasher filled the silence. I sat across from my husband, Greg, at the kitchen table, heart pounding. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Greg's face turned a deep shade of red. "You're tearing this family apart," he bellowed, slamming his fist on the table. His mother, Margaret, who had been visiting, stormed into the room. "You never deserved him," she screamed, her eyes wild with fury. Our children, Lily and Ben, came running down the stairs, tears streaming down their faces. "Don't leave us," they cried in unison. Fighting back my own tears, I whispered, "You don't know what he did, but you will." Our marriage had been deteriorating for years. Greg's temper was unpredictable, and his controlling nature suffocating. He monitored my every move, isolated me from friends and family, and belittled me at every opportunity. I had discovered his dark secret 6 months prior. While cleaning the garage, I found a hidden box containing disturbing photographs and videos. Greg had been secretly recording our children in compromising situations. My blood ran cold. I immediately contacted the authorities, but Greg was a respected member of the community, a high school teacher and church deacon. The police were hesitant, citing lack of concrete evidence. I felt helpless, trapped in a nightmare. I knew I had to protect my children. I began documenting everything, every outburst, every suspicious activity. I installed hidden cameras and kept a detailed journal. I reached out to Safe Haven, a local organization supporting victims of domestic abuse. They provided me with legal counsel and helped me devise a plan to expose Greg. I also confided in my neighbor, Sarah, who had always been supportive. Together, we gathered evidence and prepared for the inevitable confrontation. On a chilly Saturday morning, I sat down with Lily and Ben. I explained that I was leaving Greg and that it was for their safety. They were devastated, but I assured them that we would be okay. That evening, I confronted Greg with the evidence. His face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this," he snarled. Margaret, ever the enabler, accused me of fabricating everything. "You're just trying to ruin his life." I stood my ground, determined to protect my children. I filed for divorce and obtained a restraining order against Greg. With the help of Safe Haven and Sarah, I moved into a temporary shelter with Lily and Ben. The community was divided. Some believed me, others sided with Greg. But I remained steadfast. Eventually, the authorities reopened the investigation. With the new evidence, Greg was arrested and charged with multiple offenses. Margaret continued to defend him, but the truth was undeniable. It's been a year since that fateful day. The kids and I have moved to a new city, starting fresh. Lily and Ben are in therapy, and I've found solace in a support group for survivors of domestic abuse. I've also started working with Safe Haven, helping others escape similar situations. Our journey hasn't been easy, but we're healing. Looking back, I realize how strong I've become. I stood up against a monster and protected my children. To anyone out there feeling trapped, know that you're not alone. There is help and there is hope. You don't have to suffer in silence. Greg was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The community finally saw him for who he truly was. Margaret moved away, unable to face the reality of her son's actions. As for us, we've found peace. We're free. One rainy morning, about 6 months after Greg's sentencing, I was unpacking a few old boxes in our new apartment in Madison, Wisconsin. I found a worn, sealed envelope buried under layers of junk, addressed to me in my late mother's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter, dated nearly 2 years before she died. In it, she wrote, "If you ever feel lost, If you ever feel like something is terribly wrong with Greg, trust your instincts. There's something about him I never told you. My breath caught. The letter went on to describe a time when Greg had taken Ben, then a toddler, for a day out. He returned hours late, disheveled and short-tempered. When my mom questioned him, he got defensive, angrily told her to stay out of it. She never mentioned it again. But her final line chilled me. He has secrets, honey. Dark ones. I never had proof. But if you're reading this, it means you found something. Be careful. People like him don't go down easy. I stared at the paper, stunned. What else didn't I know? At our next support group meeting, I shared the letter. One of the women, Monica, a quiet mother of 3, looked pale. After the meeting, she pulled me aside. I think I knew your husband, she said. Before he moved to Cedar Rapids. I lived in Rockford, Illinois. There was a teacher at my son's school who gave me bad vibes. My boy came home crying one day, said Mr. G made him feel weird during detention. But nothing ever stuck. Mr. G? I asked, heart sinking. Yeah, Gregory L. something. Always smiling in public, but something off behind the eyes. I showed her Greg's old photo on my phone. Her face went white. That's him. I started researching Greg's past. Old newspaper clippings, school board notes, archived PTA meetings, anything. What I found made my stomach twist. A decade ago, a young boy went missing in Rockford. The case went cold, but locals remembered rumors. The boy had detention the day he disappeared, with Mr. Gregory Langston. My Greg. The same year, Greg abruptly moved to Cedar Rapids. There was no mention of the incident on his record, just a glowing recommendation from the school. I reported everything to the FBI. They reopened the Rockford case. 2 months later, I got a call from a blocked number. This is Special Agent Clark, the voice said. We've connected your ex-husband to the Rockford disappearance. DNA from the boy's backpack matched fibers found in Greg's old car. We believe he may have been involved in more than we thought. My knees gave out. I sat on the cold kitchen floor, stunned. He may be a serial predator, the agent continued. We're forming a task force. And we might need your help. The next day, a note appeared on my windshield. Stop digging or you'll regret it. No name. Just a jagged scrawl. I called the police, but they chalked it up to a prank. I didn't. I installed cameras. Changed locks. Alerted Safe Haven. But a new fear settled into my bones. Greg had connections. Friends. People who believed him. What if someone was still working for him? One evening, I was picking up groceries when I saw her. Margaret. Greg's mother, standing by the frozen food section in a long coat, staring at me like a ghost. You should have burned that letter, she said calmly. My mouth went dry. You knew. He's my son, she snapped. I protected him once. I won't do it again. Then why the threats? Why the note? Margaret smirked. That wasn't me. But you've stirred something up. You'd better be ready. And just like that, she walked away. 2 weeks later, a detective called. We got access to your old house, he said. Under a false floor in the basement, we found tapes. A lot of them. And photos. Dozens of kids. My heart broke. Some date back over 20 years, he added. Greg's crimes stretched back decades. More victims. More families shattered. Some children never even reported missing, runaways, foster kids, forgotten souls. I knew I had to tell my kids. They deserved the truth. I sat them down one quiet night. There's more about your father you need to know, I began. They listened quietly. Lily clutched her stuffed rabbit. Then stared at the floor. When I was done, they didn't cry. They didn't scream. Lily simply asked, So he's a monster? Yes, I whispered. But we are safe now. Ben's voice was calm. Then let's make sure everyone knows. I agreed to an interview with 60 Minutes, sharing everything. Photos, letters, timelines. Survivors came forward. The story exploded. Suddenly, Greg wasn't just my monster, he was a national headline. Margaret disappeared. The school board from Rockford issued a public apology. Other parents, women who once doubted me, started reaching out to say they believed now. But the most shocking thing? A woman from Minneapolis emailed me. My daughter had him as a teacher. She died 5 years ago. No one ever investigated, until now. 2 months after the 60 Minutes piece aired, a call came in from Rockford PD. "We think we've found something," said the detective. An old maintenance worker, now in hospice, had confessed that years ago, he'd been paid cash to dig a hole behind the now demolished middle school. He was told it was 4 pipes. The team unearthed a shallow grave. Inside were the remains of a young boy. A bracelet on the skeleton read, Eli. It matched the name of the child who vanished when Greg taught in Rockford. DNA confirmed it. Soon after, Sarah, my old neighbor from Cedar Rapids, called me, her voice trembling. "You won't believe this," she said. She had kept some things Greg left in her garage back when we moved quickly during the separation. In a dusty shoebox beneath some tools was a journal, his journal. In it, Greg had written cryptic entries. 3:17 a.m., he wouldn't stop crying. She saw the footage. Had to end that. No one looks in plain sight. I turned every page with shaking hands. His words weren't just ramblings, they were confessions, wrapped in codes and symbols only someone close to him could decode. The worst part? Some entries were about me. He knew I was watching. He'd been watching me back. An FBI analyst flagged something in Greg's records, someone who had worked with him at 3 different schools over the years. Mr. Daniel Cross, another teacher. He was quiet. Had no social media. Had moved around just as often as Greg. Always leaving mid-year. No red flags, just coincidences. When they brought him in for questioning, he lawyered up fast. But a deeper dig into his laptop, recovered from a seized storage unit, told the real story. Greg hadn't acted alone. Daniel had filmed, archived, stored backups. They found drives with timestamps matching Greg's journal entries. And then came the deepest cut. One night, I received an anonymous tip. Not everyone in your group is who they say they are. I didn't know what to believe until I reviewed footage from my front door camera. There, in the corner, clear as day, was Monica from the support group, talking to someone in a dark car. I froze the frame. It was Margaret. I confronted Monica after our next meeting. She denied everything. But when I told her I had the video, her face crumbled. "I needed money," she whispered. I didn't know how deep it went. Margaret had paid her to keep tabs on me. For over a year. That night, I found a small envelope slid under my front door. Inside was a photo. Ben, walking home from school. A note was scribbled on the back, "You're not as protected as you think." That was it. I called the authorities. The FBI relocated us to a safe house in Omaha, Nebraska. Lily and Ben were pulled out of school. We cut off all digital access. We became ghosts. And still, I wondered how many people still owed Greg favors. How far did his reach go? 3 weeks into hiding, the landline rang. I let it go to voicemail, then played it back. There was silence then. "I told you I'd find you." It was Greg. How? From prison? The FBI traced the call to a smuggled cell phone inside the facility. A guard had been bribed. Greg wasn't just sitting quietly, he was orchestrating a network from behind bars. Every threat, every stalker, every eerie warning? Him. But now they had proof of witness tampering and intimidation. The Bureau filed new charges. Still, the fear never left. In the midst of chaos, a stranger reached out. Detective Ava Morales, a retired child crimes investigator from California. She'd followed Greg's story since it went public. "I handled a case in 2004, she said. A girl, same MO, disappeared after tutoring. Body never found. But now, everything points back to him. I want in." With her help, they reopened 4 more cold cases in 3 different states. All linked to Greg. She also believed there were more accomplices. More parents who had suspected, but did nothing. The case was becoming bigger than anyone imagined. Then came the trial. Not for Greg's original crimes, but the new charges: obstruction, child trafficking, conspiracy. Margaret was subpoenaed. And under pressure, in front of a packed courtroom, she cracked. "I covered for him," she said through tears. "I was afraid. He told me if I didn't help, he'd hurt me too. I thought I was protecting the family. But I was wrong." Gasps echoed through the room. Her confession changed everything. Greg's lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, claiming trauma from childhood abuse. But the evidence, journals, tapes, bodies, was undeniable. The judge ordered a full federal inquiry into how he stayed hidden for so long. News of the case shook the country. People demanded answers. How had a predator like Greg moved through schools for decades without getting caught? Congress launched an investigation. School boards were subpoenaed. Politicians scrambled to save face. The hearings were televised. I was asked to testify. So was Margaret. I stood before the nation, holding up Greg's journal. "He hid in plain sight," I said, voice shaking. "He counted on silence, on fear, and the system let him." Margaret followed me. She looked smaller now. Broken. "I made terrible choices," she said. "But I want to help now." I didn't forgive her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Across the country, old cases were reopened. Victims came forward. Teachers were fired. One principal was arrested for covering up an abuse report from 2006. 3 states passed new laws requiring real-time teacher background checks and anonymous student safety lines. I felt some peace, but not closure. Ben started asking questions about justice. "Is prison enough?" he asked one night. I didn't have an answer. 6 months later, a call came from the prison. Greg was dead. Murdered by another inmate. Stabbed in the showers. 12 times. The warden called it internal justice. I didn't cry. Lily asked if I was sad. I said no. Not sad. Not glad either. Just done. But Ben looked me dead in the eyes and said he got what he gave. I saw something hard behind his stare. A part of him changed forever. Monica, the traitor from the support group, was convicted of obstruction and endangerment. She broke down at sentencing. "I just needed money," she sobbed. I didn't know kids were dying. The judge wasn't moved. "You sold out a mother protecting her children. You don't deserve pity. 10 years. She mouthed, "I'm sorry," to me as she was led away. I didn't nod. I didn't smile. I just watched. Margaret faded from public life. But not before she left me one final letter. Inside, a list of names, people she knew Greg had hurt or groomed. Some were never mentioned in the trial. She ended it with, "If I could do it over, I would have burned his world down." I hope you still do. I used that list. Sent it to authorities. Some of those people came forward. Some didn't. But the fire she'd once fed had finally scorched her. She died alone 3 months later from a stroke. No funeral. No obituary. One night, alone with a glass of wine, I read over old journal entries, my own. Entries where I excused Greg's behavior. Where I told myself he was just stressed or being protective. Times I brushed off Lily's tears or ignored Ben's quiet. I failed them too. Not like Greg did. But I let it happen too long. I stared in the mirror and said it out loud. "You made mistakes." But I also fought like hell to fix them. A year later, on the anniversary of Greg's arrest, I returned to Cedar Rapids. The house we lived in had been sold, but I parked across the street and just sat there. In my lap was the last journal page I ever wrote. It said, "You tried to break me. You caged me in silence and shame. But you failed." I spoke. They heard. And now your name burns. I lit a match and watched the page curl into ash on the sidewalk. No tears. No fear. Just fire. We live now in Flagstaff, Arizona. Quiet town. Big skies. Ben is in high school. Lily paints sunsets every night. I work with a nonprofit that helps moms escape abuse. I sit in courtrooms with them. I hold their hands. I listen when they cry. They always ask, will it get better? And I tell them, yes. But not because time heals. Because you will fight to make it better. And when the world finally listens, you'll burn the darkness down. I look at my kids. They didn't just survive their father. They rose from the ashes he left behind. And so did I.